Welcome to a new video and a new video comparison. 4K 60 frames per second, the Xiaomi 15 Ultra against the Vivo X200 Pro. So let's get started. We start off with the front-facing camera, 4K 60 on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. So what do you think about this one here in terms of stabilization, in terms of colors, in terms of HDR? There's a bit of sun coming from this side there. I'm holding Timmy on the leash. This is why I cannot show it to you. Now you can see flaring probably. So what do you think about this one here? And how does it compete with the Vivo X200 Pro? And this is the Vivo X200 Pro. How does this look like in terms of stabilization? On screen it looks fine, but in reality I always had stabilization issues with the front-facing camera, also at 4K 30. So how well does this do here on the X200 Pro? Why I'm choosing the X200 Pro, not the X100 Ultra? Because I think the skin colors here on the X200 Pro are a lot better than on the X100 Ultra. And as people like to tend to look at this as well, how well does it compete with HDR? I think the Xiaomi did a little bit better, I'm not sure. And there's a bit of flaring going on. So what do you think about the front-facing camera here on the Vivo X200 Pro? Now we start off with 4K 60 frames per second on the main camera sensor of the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. So what do you think about this one here? How is HDR when I'm filming directly into sun? Probably having some issues, hopefully not when I'm holding it like this. 4K 60 frames per second, I can switch between all lenses, so let's do this. Even if Timmy is a little bit like pulling. We go to the ultra wide angle. So this is the ultra wide angle. It's the perfect vlogging length, I would say. It gives a lot of details and pulls in a lot of details as well from your surroundings. So you can see a lot more than with just the main camera sensor, but you don't get a nice background blur. So this is something you have to keep in mind. So we are here at this tree. So what we want to do is to perform a little zoom test. I go into the shadow so we can do this here. We go directly, Timmy, stop. We go directly to 2x, 3x, 4.3x, and then we can zoom in. This is Timmy, stop, 10x. And then we go into, this was the 15x here. And then we can go up to 30x at 4K 60 frames per second and back to 1x. So pretty nice indeed. So what do you think about the quality here of this one? Mic quality, you cannot really compete the internal mics here because it would be like too windy and too... I'm using an external mic here, lavalier mic, plugged via USB Type-C, same kind of hardware. So the only difference there might be the ACG, I think it's called, automatic gain, AGC, automatic gain control. So that raises the volume or lowers the volume. So what do you think about this one here? Now I'm filming with the X200 Pro. How well does this main sensor do? It should have a little bit less background blur. It's not a 1-inch type sensor. How well does it handle HDR? I think the lid, Leica 818 is doing a good job here still, but the bokeh and low light performance is something where you will see that it will suffer in comparison to the 1-inch type sensor here, also especially in video mode. But they did a quite nice job for daylights, and as the skin color is better, this is why I also decided to use the X200 Pro instead of the X100 Ultra. 4K 60 I can also switch to the ultra wide angle. This is a bit more narrow, I think, but still doing a nice job, gives you a nice surrounding, and it's a good kind of vlogging camera if you want to do travel vlogs, because you can see a little bit of the surroundings as well. So what do you think about this one here? Especially like if I do this, like you can see everything nice and dandy here. 4K 60 frames per second. How good is stabilization? This is something, one of the weakest point I think of Vivo here is the stabilization is not so smooth as others. Timmy, stop. And now we perform a little zoom test. We go to 2x, which is the crop of the main, 3.7x, which is the periscope zoom. Then we can go to 10x, and I can go up to 15x here, and I cannot go to 30, but I can go to 20x. So what do you think about the quality here of this footage? And let's go back to 1x. So which one is winning here, the Vivo X200 Pro or the Xiaomi 15 Ultra at 4K 60 frames per second? What do you think? What is your opinion? Write it down in the comment section and let's go into details and I tell you which one is my favorite. front-facing camera comparison, what we can see here is the Xiaomi has overblown the highlights here on the right side of my head a little bit, but more overblown here on the Vivo, but it might have something to do with like just the fence being there in the way. But in terms of colors, you can see that the Vivo is a bit warmed up my face, a bit more yellowish on my face, a bit more realistic looking actually on the 15 Ultra, because I'm a little bit pale because there was no sun for almost the whole season, and now sun is coming out, so I'm not like sun buffed yet. I'm not that yellow or warmish kind of looking, so the Xiaomi is doing a better job there. We can see also in the background there, this is why I like this so much, that we have lifted up shadows on the Vivo. We have a little bit more contrast look on the 15 Ultra. When we take a look at the detail levels here, details 15 Ultra, it's a bit soft on the face there, could be sharper, but the background is nice and blurry there. And now on the Vivo, this is like even blurrier, the face here I would say, and the background is also nice and blurry there. In terms of detail levels and so on, looks pretty much the same. When we take a look at the both videos running, you can see the stabilization on the Xiaomi is ahead of the one of the Vivo. This is an issue that we have on the Vivo. In the Vivo it's like it was even worse. Now they optimize it a little bit there, but every footstep still you can feel a little bit of the shakiness there, which we don't have so much on the Xiaomi, so that is for sure. And there's no autofocus on both. How do they handle the sun? So this is the Xiaomi. Now let's see how the Vivo does it. You can see already it has some lens flare issues there, and here it's actually the same spot where I turned. You can see maybe a bit there. There you can see it's the same spot where I turned, and I think both having some issues, maybe the Vivo a bit more than the Xiaomi in this case. We can also see that the field of view is roughly the same, just holding it a little bit different there, which is like giving us a difference somehow. But you can see lens flare effect, both are struggling the same way. So in terms of colors, details and so on, I think Xiaomi is they're almost the same. Xiaomi has a bit more realistic colors, a bit more boosted up shadows on the Vivo, and in terms of stabilization, Xiaomi is clearly winning for the selfie video against the Vivo. Comparing the main camera footage, what we can see here is that the Vivo handles HDR a bit better. As you can see here, my left side, the cheek is not overexposed, where it is it actually overexposed? Look a little bit overexposed. If I go to full screen, you can see it is not fully overexposed, it's just a bit brighter. And this is an issue I think I have with the Xiaomi, that in general, not only for photos, but also for videos, everything is a bit just 0.7 EV brighter than it should be, sometimes at least. Regarding stabilization, when you compare both there in terms of stabilization, I think both are doing a fine job. You can see that the Vivo is a bit more cropped in than the Xiaomi in this case. In terms of colors and bokeh, let's check out the bokeh there. You can see also, and the colors especially. So let's try to get back to the spot I was before, roughly there. You can see in terms of bokeh, this is the bokeh that we have here on the Vivo, and this is the bokeh that we have here on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi should be a little bit more bokeh-licious. It is a bit softer for sure, but it is not as big of a difference as I thought it would be. This is a bit more busy, the bokeh there, but still doing a very nice job here. And when we go in and see the exposure, also how it handles the exposure changes, you can see that the Vivo does a good job. It has not so much of a red face issue that comes from the HDR. Actually, I didn't see any red spots. But here on the Xiaomi, however, you can see sometimes those red spots and overexposure. So maybe there is some issue with, in general, having it a bit overexposed there. Then quite interesting is when we switch to the ultra wide angle. Let's see how it will look like, and switch there as well. So this is how the Xiaomi did it, this is how the Vivo is doing it. You can see both have a nice animation for this, but you can see also that it is getting a bit wider on the Vivo, but it's not as wide as the 15 Ultra. The 15 Ultra is much wider, and this I prefer for an ultra wide angle. The Vivo is actually, yeah, on a focal length that I would say is very comparable to what I have with my 18mm Nubia Z60 Ultra. So it's very, very similar. What we can also see is much more contrasty look on the Xiaomi. Even if I go like one frame further, it's much more contrasty. Look at this here, and it's much less contrasty here. We have way more shadows here. We have here more HDR processing going on. It is slightly bit warmed up again on the Vivo, where here it's keeping a little bit more subtle, a little bit less warmed up on the Xiaomi. In terms of stabilization and movements, both are doing a very fine job. It's just like a bit of more punchy colors on the Vivo. This is like an issue that we have extremely with the X100 Ultra, but the X200 Pro still, I think, suffers a little bit from this. It might be like it is some kind of taste kind of thing, so let's leave it as it is. But here you can see the phase difference here, and this is like way too red and orange looking on the X200, where the 15 Ultra does a way better job there in terms of colors. And yeah, I don't like this phase. I know this from Huawei phones as well. They have this like tendency to warm up and oranging up the face a little bit, or red up the face. This is what Xiaomi does a lot better here for the ultra wide angle. Plus the ultra wide angle field of view, you can see a little bit of the citadel, which you don't on the X200 Pro, even though I thought it should be in focus here, or it should be like shown. Otherwise, yeah, detail level, even though we have more cropped in, you can see that it is a bit softer here all around on the Vivo, and it's a bit more detailed here, even though wider field of view on the Xiaomi. Might be thanks to the more contrasty kind of look and a bit more sharpening applied, but it might be also the lens being a bit sharper. One thing that I forgot to mention in general is, like you can see it here in the shots of the main camera, is that there is lens flare. Quite a lot of lens flare on the here in this situation where we were testing out the HDR. You can see the HDR is a bit stronger in the X200 Pro, but there's a lot of more lens flare on the X200 Pro. So this is definitely an issue that you can run to in also the video mode. Let's go and perform the zoom test, and there you will see that I was a bit disappointed by the Xiaomi, and it doesn't always do it, so it might be one fluke that it had here. But first of all, again, HDR-ish more looking on the X200 Pro, more contrasty looking on the 15 Ultra for sure, almost to the point where it's like a little bit blown out here. Look at this, maybe go one frame further. Look at this here. It's almost blown out there, where here it is kept in, and it's a bit sharper looking, also a bit clearer looking on the 200 Pro, where here it's a bit soft looking. But let's go and zoom in. This is 2x, and this is also, I think, 2x there. Again, we have more shadow, more contrasty look on the 15 Ultra, a bit more HDR-ish kind of look on the X200 Pro. Which one do you like? I prefer the 15 Ultras for being a bit more realistic, because if I want to zoom in, I want to see the play of shadows and light, and I don't want it to be like completely flat looking, which is like what the Vivo does here. But you can be completely different. You like the smartphone kind of look, then you get the X200 Pro for video. But if you like more realistic, more camera-like kind of look, then the 15 Ultra is better in this regard. And yeah, both are doing a fine job, I would say here. The zoom, however, you saw it was a bit jumpy there, which is not always does. Sometimes it's very fluid, and when I zoom out, you see it's very fluid. So that might be a one-time fluke, but I want to mention it here. The X200 Pro is doing a much better job there with having it very, very smooth and nice. So let's go and check out the detail levels. So this is the 4.3, and I think we have reached the 3.7. Yeah, this is like then 3.7. Let's go one frame further. Let's take a look at this detail here, detail levels. You can read everything. Everything is nice and sharp, looking very nice indeed. Here everything looks a bit flat, but you can make out maybe a little bit more details because you have a bit more wider field of view. It's a bit softer here and it starts a bit blooming there, which we don't have so much here. And then we can go in 10 times and we can go in 10 times here as well. And let's compete here and compare. So this is 10 times, has a bit of blooming as you see here above. It's doing a fine job. Black, it keeps it black, which is nice. There's a little bit of details you can see, but there's a bit of noise already creeping in, maybe a bit over sharpening. And let's compare it with here. Also has lots of issues with the detail level here, so it's like brightening everything up a little bit. You can see a little bit more of details here. You can see how soft it is, and like, yeah, it's getting softer there. So this is not, it's like lifted a bit the shadows a bit, so this is not completely black there. It's still black, but it's like a brighter black, and so you can make up some details. But here the detail level are the little spikes there to hinder birds to shit on the building or to sit there. You can see the individual, you can see like the individual kind of spikes, you can see it still, where here it's getting very, very soft and you cannot make them out anymore. So let's zoom in and a bit further. Timmy was like disturbing there, and then I zoomed a bit too far, and then 15 times. And let's go here also to 15 times. And let's compare this one here. You can see nice and black, but also the blooming is apparent also already here above there. You can see the spikes there, not so much anymore. Here you can see a little bit of individual spikes. You can see the sharpening a little bit there, and the blooming is apparent. And here everything gets a bit softer for sure. It is softer. The spikes you can make out a little bit. The blooming is also there. It's more of this HDR-ish kind of look because the shadows are raised there. And in terms of detail levels, they do a very good job in denoising. This is like, I think, the maximum zoom that you can get here. It's almost no noise. When I move a little bit around, you can see a little bit of the sharpening and the denoising going on. Where here on the Xiaomi, when I go to full zoom, you can see like all the noise creeping in and the sharpening and everything what it's doing there. It is still nice and detailed. There you can see the zoom out was very nice, and here the zoom out is even, I think, nicer. Let's check it again. Which one you prefer in terms of zoom out? I think both very, very smooth and nice. You can see a bit of the lens flare effect like still going on here on the Vivo, and also a little bit more narrow field of view that we have on the Vivo in comparison to the Xiaomi. So overall, which one would I prefer? I like the colors out of the box on the Xiaomi much better, even though it tends to overexpose sometimes. I like the colors a little bit better. The jumpiness in the zoom, I hope they can fix it here. The Vivo X200 Pro is much, much smoother in zooming in, zooming out. The HDR is much better on the X200 Pro, but sometimes looks a little bit artificial smartphone-like, I would say, out of the box. And yeah, in terms of colors, Xiaomi is the winner here. In terms of detail levels, when you zoom in further, Xiaomi is the winner there. In terms of HDR, the Vivo is the winner there. In terms of sound, both are very good. In terms of detail level on my face and bokeh, Xiaomi is a little bit ahead there. Bokeh is nice and smooth. Bokeh is a little bit busy here on the X200 Pro. Sharpness is there. It's not too over sharp and looking like on the 15 Pro, for example, on the Xiaomi. So I think I give a slight win to the Xiaomi 15 Ultra here for the main cam. You have maybe a different opinion. You can write it down in the comment section. What do you think about this one here? And here now an internal mic test, because it's not windy here at this point, and I'm using 4K 60 frames per second in log recording on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. So what do you think about this one here? How well is it performing with the sun? Even if I like turn around like this, how good is the lens flare and the flaring protection here on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra? I think it is doing a great job so far. I will get my favorite LUT that I discovered last time when I was doing a test with the Xiaomi here on, which is a cinematic LUT that is built into the video editor of Xiaomi devices, so I can use it and show you how well this is working here. And in a second we will test out the Vivo X200 Pro as well with its log recording, and yeah, also a LUT that I will apply there for sure. So yeah, what do you think about the quality here? I think the log recording is doing a little bit even more and gives you a little bit more of control. Also, because this should be the best settings here, lowered the EV minus 0.7, which should give you a little bit more of details there without this overexposure that you might saw on the face, especially when the sun is like shining directly on my face in the original or normal video mode at 4K 60. And I'm recording with the Vivo X200 Pro and also log 4K 60 frames per second. How well does this handle the sun and the shadows, even if I turn around to have like something that can be a bit compared? And yeah, let's see how well it's doing here also with the internal mics. There's a busy street, you hear maybe like cars passing by a little bit here, but it should focus nicely on my voice here. I think almost all smartphones are pretty good nowadays in filtering out the voices, so you don't always have to rely on an external mic, either being wireless or wired, on your smartphone if you have semi-quiet environment. So what do you think about the quality here? 4K 60 frames per second in log recording with the main sensor, because you cannot switch lenses in recording. I think you cannot switch lenses. You can zoom in. I can switch lenses to the 3.7 times. Not on the Xiaomi though, as far as I'm aware, but here on the Vivo you can switch to the periscope zoom and crop in even 2 times if you want to, but we stay at the main one to see how well this is doing. So should be enough footage now. So what do you think about this recording here on the Vivo X200 Pro? You saw me playing around with log footage and LUTs, and maybe I overdid it a little bit, and the cinema LUT just looks good on the phone, but if you bump it up to like full HD or 4K screen, it looks not so great. So what I did for this comparison here is I put both of them in log and was redoing the log with a LUT which is just called the Rec 709 LUT. On the Xiaomi 15 Ultra you can do it immediately directly in the editing app itself. On the Vivo X200 Pro I had to do it via FFmpeg on a command line and using a generic log to LUT, log to Rec 709 LUT, and this is what you get here. So you can see here much more contrasty kind of look on the Vivo, on the Xiaomi actually. On the Vivo it's a much less contrasty look, elevated shadows and not so punchy blues, but like I said, you can like change it the way you like it. What I noticed is on the Xiaomi, despite me having like -7.0 EV, which also helps like with perceiving it a little bit darker, still have like very bright kind of spots there, but it's not overexposed most of the time. As you can see here, even here it is not overexposed, it is like nicely exposed. It handles this situation here with the sun in the background quite okay. You can see a bit of sun flare. It's a bit dark, the exposure there, but the rest is nice, looking not too bad. On the Vivo, when we take a look at a similar situation, where do I have it? There. We have somewhere a similar situation. I think it is also handling it nice. Doesn't have, because of this not so much contrasty kind of look, this whitish kind of spot. This is like more flat still looking here. So maybe you have to raise the contrast a little bit more. So the normal standard LUT to Rec 709 is not enough, and there's no LUT that I found. If you have a LUT that can do it immediately and gives you nice colors, then tell me from the Vivo. Xiaomi has it on board. The Vivo is lacking this. But in terms of detail level and so on, they're very, very clean both. Look at this here, nice and sharp, nice bokeh. It doesn't have this busyness of the bokeh because it's not sharpening the background up, which is like very, very nice on the Vivo. And the Xiaomi, I think it might do a bit of sharpness, or it is just naturally this sharp on my face. The background is very nice and blurry as well. So if you want to push the best out of those two cameras, and both are very comparable, in this case it's just a matter of taste and how fast you can edit the stuff, because on Vivo, like I said, you have to offload it to either a computer, use 3D LUT app if you have like a LUT that you can work with that's working nice on the Vivo. Otherwise the Xiaomi has like built-in LUTs and you can add your own LUTs there. The Leica LUTs are working very nicely as well, like a natural photo, for example, I also like pretty much here. So the Xiaomi is a little bit easier to work with on device, where the Vivo gives you same nice proportions. If you like to work with a third-party app or on a computer, then yeah, Vivo is also pretty good. So they're very, very similar in this regard when it comes to working with the locks. It's just very interesting that you can get a very, very cool kind of color and tweaking with both of them, and you have the ability to yeah, to have a very interesting outcome on both of them, which is I think quite nice. The only thing that I noticed is that on the Xiaomi you can record lock on all lenses, which is cool, but you cannot like switch the lenses. So something that the Vivo can do, where you can like at least switch to the periscope zoom in 4K 60 when recording lock. You cannot do it on the Xiaomi. Yeah, otherwise very, very interesting, both of them, and equally good, I think, with the lock and a lock format and what the end result just brings. It's just like a matter of tweaking and how you like to tweak it. I would like to tweak them with the same kind of LUT, but I try to, but I didn't find one that will work on both actually pretty good. And yeah, so you have a little bit of differences here and there, and you have to deal with those differences in a way. And yeah, both are pretty good. Both have good lock support for video. I would give them equal points when it comes to their lock handling, and the only difference, like I said, is LUTs are available on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra directly in the video editor, where in the X200 Pro it's missing, and you have to use an external app for this, or either on phone or on your computer. So in the end, both are doing a fantastic job here. If I have to nitpick a little bit, I like the Xiaomi a little bit more than the Vivo here, to be honest. More stabilized front video that I sometimes use for video creation, and I also don't like this too much HDR-ish kind of look. I like a bit more natural kind of look here for sure, but both I would take in a, if I have to choose between, I would take both if I will have to go and film something out and about, like for my channel, for example. I can live with both phones here. Just the front-facing camera of the Vivo I would like not move around too quickly. So which one is your favorite? Write it down in the comment section. That's everything for this video. Until the next time. Bye.